What is happening, y'all? FightinCowboy here, and welcome back to our Elden Ring guided coverage. So, if you are following along from the guide and you defeated Radahn, the next step is going to be to head on down into Nokron, right here where we have Starfall Crater on the map. Now we're going to be starting from the Fort Hyatt West Grace. This is over in the Mistwood area of Limgrave, and from here we can just run straight on over and make our way on down. If you're following along with the stats for this build, at this point we're pretty much just going to be pumping strength up for a bit. Keep in mind that you get a two-handed modifier to strength, so if we're holding our weapon with both hands, we get 1.5 times the amount of strength we would typically need. But if you are interested in alternative weapons, for example something like the Ruin's Greatsword, now is a good time to start really working towards those stats. So get up to the 50 strength, get up to the 16 int. If you just want to stick with regular Greatsword, we obviously already have those stats. But either way, we're going to head on down this way. And you can see that there is a path down there just barely lit up. So we're going to follow this along. Let's see a spot below us. And a spot below us. And then right over here, let's see another spot that we're able to leap down. Now from here, we're just going to make our way on down and grab a couple pieces of loot. Nothing in this immediate vicinity is incredibly important, but, you know, personally, I don't like just leaving loot behind sitting. It's like it's bad karma, you know? Can't just leave stuff sitting, waiting to be picked up. Look at it. It's so shiny. It's waiting for you. But making our way through there, we are now at Nokron, the Eternal City. And now this is really just a entrance sequence to get through here. After we get into Nokron proper, things will be a little bit more tricky. So if you want to get over to there, I have to do one of those trick jumps where we jump and then we hold our dodge button down, our sprint button down, and that allows us to do a long jump, same as here. So jump up with A, hold B, keep holding B, go forward and hit A, get that long jump. And over here we have the Ghost Flame Torch. Pretty interesting little item. It functions the same as a regular torch, but you can actually attack with it and cause some frost buildup. If you are aware of color schemes, it's also considered a cool light as opposed to a warm light. So it'll give you a different sense of illumination for your character. So there's going to be a lot of these little blobby characters down here. You can usually just run on up and whack them. Alternatively, you could just ignore these enemies. For the most part, these things aren't going to be a threat. They take a while to react. As you can see, we're just kind of walking, and all three of them are trying to stab, and they're still kind of looking over it that way. So if you want, I mean, you can. I think that's a good representation of why they're not really that much of a threat. You can see a couple more popping up. We're just gonna run right past them. Up over here onto this roof. And we'll go over here and we'll turn on it. Finger Remedy. Another goodie tucked away back here. And then right here, you'll notice we can drop on down. Now these enemies may seem very slow, but if given the chance, they can actually do a lot of damage. And probably the bigger risk here is the ledges. There's a lot of ledges, so just be very careful coming through here. The last thing you want to do is get caught by a stray attack or a stray arrow and fall off the ledge. Thankfully, we have the Grace right here, so not really a far run. And now we are properly in Nokron. So this is actually a pretty small little area, but there are a couple goodies that we want to get, most importantly being the Ghost Glovewort Picker's Bell Bearing. This will allow you to buy your Ghost Glovewort directly from the Twin Finger Maidens. So, similar to how we can get smithing stones from her, there's a couple of those throughout the world of Elden Ring as well. Those are going to let you buy the things you need to upgrade your ashen summons. So there's a lot of enemies like this around here with the great shields. For the most part, I would suggest just ignoring them. I mean, they have a great shield. They're going to be very hard to deal damage to. And we're just picking up a couple crafting things. The ones that don't have the great shields, those ones may be worth fighting. In this case, we're picking up the Ghost 3 and the Ghost 4. You can see we're kind of just working our way around this zone. Anything that doesn't have a shield, we're going ahead and attacking. We're not going to worry about going all the way over there. Swing in here. As the shields are at, I'm just ignoring them. And if you think those shields are particularly annoying to deal with, well, you are in luck, because here we have Great Shield Soldier Ashes. So if you're not sure what you want to use for an Ashen Summon, or maybe you just want something that's going to serve as an excellent distraction or a tank, the Great Shield Ashes are a fantastic choice in this regard. It'll summon up 5 of these enemies with the shields, and all they do is just serve as guards. They will they'll try and do a little bit of shield bashing, but they are a very good Ash of War if you just want something that's going to survive and distract. They're not going to do a lot of damage, but when it comes to surviving and distracting, they do an excellent job. So we're going down here, but we have one more piece of candy to grab. Back in here for the melted mushroom. And then we'll round this corner. Or a somber forward. Now, kind of, as you can see, you know, none of this stuff is incredibly important. The big thing would be the ashes over there, and the larval tear, which we picked up in the church. Oh, I guess, and the bell bearing that was right there underneath the gazebo. But once you have that, just head on down. Over here, we will pick up a golden rune. Right here, go ahead and get a quick jump attack. Will take care of that. And there are some enemies waiting here, so just make sure you grab that with a little bit of haste and just walk right on through. Grab that rune arc. Now, the next encounter is one of the coolest encounters in Elden Ring. This is the Mimic Tear. The Mimic Tear will pull from everything that you can pull from. So, if you want to go in and fight a copycat of yourself, you certainly can. If, however, for some reason you are worried at all, we're going to do this. By taking off our 2 primary weapons, well, not our weapons, but our weapon and our shield. If we walk on into the arena and walk up, that is going to be what the Mimic will spawn with. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my stuff back on. And you can see this is now the threat we are faced with. This is also a great chance to get parry practice. If there is a particular weapon that you want to practice against, you could give him an unupgraded version of it and just, you know, keep getting parries. This is actually a good time to demonstrate these since we just got them. And see what they do here. So you can see they've called aggro on over to the Mimic, and they are going to spread out a little bit. And you can see all they're doing is just blocking up and doing a little bit of shield slam. So they would take an extremely long time to kill the Mimic. But the advantage here is they are serving an excellent distraction. So especially if you're playing with a bow or magic or faith or just anything that's going to be more ranged focused, having them just distract the enemy is a very, very nice tool. Anyway, defeating the Mimic tier, though, will land you the Larval tier, as well as the Silver tier mask. Just coming down to this area, we get quite a few of the Larval tiers. So by the time you're done this zone, you should have enough for, I believe it's 5 respecs, but you get quite a few. Almost forgot about you, little man. So we're going to run along this path, and right after we go through this, it'll open on up, and we can go down there. You can see there's also a little spot over here. We can get a couple the Ghost Glove Warrior, and there's a couple other areas in here that you can go to, namely over there. But that is going to be something that comes into play much, much later. So just calling it on out. You're probably looking for a way. You've been down here twice now, which this is the continuation of Siofra. So we were all down here before. You can see the whole zone down there, everything that we cleared out. Now we're in the upper half of it. But while there is a lot to do here, I'm going to mainly leave you all to explore this portion of the Siofra. It's a tricky pronunciation on that. But the main reason we have come down here is at the request of Ranni. So right between these rocks, we have a grace, and this is actually the entrance to where we have to go. So just to show where we're at on the map, right here, the Ancestral Woods. A good way is when you see the singer, just go ahead and turn to the left. Then we're going to jump on over here, and this is taking us into what's known as Night's Sacred Ground. Now, these over here, they are similar to Mimic tiers, but they're not going to generate copies of you. It's just going to be things that'll fight you. You can see that one is running towards me. There's some loots we're going to get, and there's a good chance it might fall off that ledge while attacking. So if you're wondering why it's gone when we get back. Get that Celestial Dew. Those 2,000 runes that just popped up, that is exactly what happened there. So we're going to go here. And then this jump is a little bit longer, so I would suggest doing the long jump technique just for good measure. The silver tiers aren't particularly dangerous, but it is possible for them to overpower you with numbers, so just keep in mind while fighting them. Now it is right over here. We have a little... There's all sorts of little goodies that are tucked away in this place. So make sure you fully explore it, but we're gonna go through the meat and potatoes of it, if you will. Across this ledge. Drop on down. Grab the black wet blade. Grab that if you need any health. And now we'll get access to not only a legendary ashen summon, but one of the most powerful summons in the game. After defeating the Nox Mistress, go ahead and open up the chest for your reward. The glorious Mimic Tier Ashes. So, similar to the boss you just fought, the Mimic Tier Ashes serve as a summon that is a copy of your own character. Now, with this, keep in mind that this summon is only going to be as strong as you are, which is the both the advantage and the disadvantage of it. If your character isn't built very strong, the Mimic will not be very strong. If you are using a very potent build with a strong weapon and a strong Ashavor, the Mimic will likely be the best summon in the game. So just keep in mind, you know, it has the, I'll say this, the Mimic is a powerful enough summon that it has actually been nerfed multiple times to try and bring it in line because of how strong it is. So we got that. Back through here. Go ahead and grab the Nox Flowing Hammer. Now this next part, there are a couple enemies that are going to try and attack you. This ball is also going to roll towards you. So one of the things that we can actually do here is, if you think you can kill the ball fast, that's great. Otherwise, let's land, and then we're going to go right on over here. And we'll kill the first mistress. You can see the ball's getting stuck, and that's exactly what we want. Just waiting for mistress number 2 to come in. If you're lucky, that'll happen. And now we can... The thing with the ball is it's more about quick hits than heavy hits. So as long as you're continually attacking the ball, it won't be able to start up and roll towards you again. But if it does, it can do some damage. So killing the ball will net us another larval tier. And then from here, we're going to go on out and prepare for the final approach. So let's go ahead and grab this. And we're actually going to go level up the Mimic tier a little bit and give you an idea of how it works. So up until now, we've been using the gray flowers. Now we use the ghost flowers because the Mimic tier is considered a high tier or a rare tier summon. So I mean, technically it's considered a legendary tier summon. So you can see Grave Glovewort, Ghost Glovewort. So we're going to put all the Ghost Glovewort we have into it. And it is now on par with Arcaden. Another thing that is, well, I don't want to say unique because there are a few others that it happens to, but another thing that is very beneficial about the Mimic tier is it uses health to summon as opposed to mana, and this makes it especially useful for builds like our own where it's a strength build. Like we have, you know, we have relatively low mind, at only 13 mind, but with this we can, no, I hit the wrong one. You know, whereas that would empty out our entire gauge, we can use the Mimic tier, and it will cost us health, which we can easily heal through. So, go ahead, summon the Mimic tier, pop a quick flask to top on off, and now you see we have double the cowboys. And it'll actually do a pretty well job. So, just to show it, see, getting on in and... See, it's using the Lion's Claw there. That's the thing, if you're using a weapon that has one of the more devastating Ashes of War on it, the Mimic will also use those. And one of the nice things about the Mimic is not bound by the constraints of FP. So if you are a spellcaster, and I really want to stress that it is identical to you. So, for example, if you are playing as a spellcaster and the only spell you have on is Comet, for example. Comet is very expensive, does good damage. If you're doing that, the Mimic will continually cast Comet, and it won't cast anything else. But this is important because if you're playing and you have 5 or 6 different spells on, the Mimic will rotate through 5 or 6 different spells. So it's important for you to keep in mind what you're using if you want to use the Mimic. Listen, this copycat battle has gone on long enough. Oh man, I missed. Now, you don't actually have to fight anything that's down here. The only thing we need to do is just run straight on ahead to the big skeleton that's sitting here. That teleporter is going to take you out of here, so don't touch that just yet. And there it is. The Great Ghost Glovewort and the Fingerslayer Blade. Now, after that, we can now leave at this part, but if you want to explore around, finish fighting those things, feel free to. And this is going to take us right back to where we were before we came inside. Now, the whole reason to come down here, if you are doing the Ranni questline, was to get the Fingerslayer Blade. And that's what I want to discuss now. So from here, we're going to go back to Ranni's Rise. And this is where this side quest can get a little bit tricky, a little bit hidden, if you will. So from Ranni's Rise, we're going to go on up, and we're going to give her the dagger that we just acquired. And you would think that you had finished the quest at that point. But there's still more to it, and we're going to point you in that direction before we wrap up this episode.
Ah, not blithe it seemeth. Even in my slumber I sensed it is in my thanks soon must.
So go ahead and run through her dialogue. This gives you the carry an inverted statue.
Strange. I must thank you, Mail. It was but. What is it? I too.
And she's going to talk about going on a dark journey. Now, the next thing we're going to do is actually go over to this tower. Now, this tower was previously locked, but by giving Ranni the Fingerslayer Blade, that tower becomes unlocked, and we're now able to use that to access another portion of the underground map that we previously couldn't see. And this is where her quest line gets a little tricky, but I'm going to guide you through enough of it that it'll be good to go out on your own. Here we are at Ranni's Rise. Let's go ahead and climb the tall ladder. You remember that when she first introduced herself to you, she said her name was Renna. Over here, if you're playing as a caster, you'll find the Snow Witch gear, which is the outfit she was using. And by going all the way up to the top, you'll notice we have another transporter. If we go ahead and interact with this, it will take us to the second half of the other underground portion of the map. So similar to how we were just at the Ascension, you can see previously we were just over here, Ancestral Woods and Nokron. Now we are up here at the second half of Ainsel. So here, what we want to do is pick this up, and you can see it's a miniature Ranni. You may think it's something that we put on our shelf back at home, but no. It's actually something we interact with here. So we're going to go to the very first grace. And then talk to the miniature Ranni. And talk to the miniature Ranni. And talk to it a third time.
A dogged fellow, aren't we? Or is it me? I hadn't expected. Now that perform, eliminate the name of Ra. I will not.
And with that, we have now triggered the continuation of the Ranni questline. Now, this actually goes pretty deep. From here, we could go all the way through here, and we're going through the whole upper area of this zone, and it's actually going to continue on into another sub-zone, and eventually you'll come up with a boss, and this is the path that you need to be on to actually reach one of the endings. So there's still quite a bit left, but from here, the rest is fairly straightforward in the Ranni questline, and nothing that you really need to worry about. The other thing that I want to point out is the Carrion Royal Statue. With the Carrion Royal Statue, what you can do is go over here, place the Carrion Royal Statue, it'll rotate this, You can then take that to get up to the bridge, and then you can take the bridge across to go up to this divine tower. Going up to that divine tower is going to get you a item, and with that item you can then open the chest that we had talked about previously. That's over here by Ranni, the locked chest in her room. So there's plenty more adventure, but the next thing we're going to be doing in the next episode is actually heading on over to this hole, and we're going to be using that to get access up into both Gelmir and the Altus Plateau. Now, alternatively, you could go over here with 2 halves of the medallion and cross. That's the vanilla approach, if you will. But there are upgrade mats as well as runes to be had by taking the alternate approach. And so in the next part, we're going to cover that and send you on your way.